They've never actually been in shape and have no experience other than Googling, can you target fat loss, and then finding the Google answer. For the mornings, I normally skip breakfast, definitely hydrate, and try to do some high intensity cardio-based style warm-ups for the day just to empty out that tank, completely burn off the leftover calories that I had from eating from the day before.
Google, help me. Are energy systems linear? Does fasted cardio have a unique fat burning benefit? No and no? Ah, okay, ready.
For the mornings, I normally skip breakfast, definitely hydrate, and try to do some high intensity cardio-based style warm-ups for the day just to empty out that tank, completely burn off the leftover calories that I had from eating from the day before.
These calories are for tomorrow. This specific apple, the calories in this apple, I'm gonna burn them tomorrow. That's 1 rep. That's 2 reps. But don't worry, I won't get fat. Tomorrow, as I said, I'm going to specifically target these calories. My cranium hurts. And so this is episode 5 of my peer review. And to start, I like THENX a lot. I've made videos about him previously, his channel in relation to CrossFit and in relation to building muscle with calisthenics. And his videos were very good and I stand by those. However, I'd not seen some of his videos. And specifically in this video, I'm going to look at his nutritional information, which is bordering on the ridiculous at times. And to be fair, a lot of this information is on his Heria channel, which is also a large channel, but it's more vlog and nutrition style stuff, whereas his THENX channel is heavily calisthenic. Keep chasing the clout, bro. I hope this video can give you some views. You should really do that 8-minute belly fat workout video. Condescending emojis. Fam, you recording in a car? I knew old salty fat men that think they in shape, that are jealous of what everyone else is doing. What make a clout chasing video like you did? Aw, Chris. Just to be clear, Chris, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. THENX is not a bad channel. This is not a V-Shred. This is not a Vince Del Monte or a Thomas DeLauer situation. This is somebody who has very impressive calisthenics, and I find his calisthenic videos motivational. They bring calisthenics into a positive light and the editing, etc. And I reference his videos all the time when I'm looking for new push-up variations, etc. If you're looking for more all-round information, which includes a nutritional aspect and input, I do not advise this channel, Heria or THENX at all, because it's extremely poor bro science that he's putting out. And before you shout at me, where is the fitness in this video? The fitness in this video is the explanation of energy substrates and fasted cardio.
There's normally 3 scenarios, and that's heavy lifting with low reps, and that's going to be a heavy carb day. I normally have fat burning days, which is really light on the carbs, no carbs at all, and then I have those regular workout days, which are half carbs fasting. Now each day I fast for different periods of time depending on what I'm going to be working on that day. If I'm focusing on heavy lifts for the day, I'm probably going to shorten my fast time and I'm probably going to be eating a lot more carbs. If I plan on having a fat burning day, well then I'm probably not going to eat as many carbs, if any carbs at all. So I could be using my fat storage cells as energy like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video. And what I like to do is start each day with an empty tank. So at the beginning, as soon as I wake up, I try to burn out what was ever left in from the day before. And I find that to be the most efficient way to be burning fat every single day and still simultaneously building lean muscle.
Aragon et al. 2014 say the theoretical basis behind a fat-burning advantage to fasted exercise is predicated on increasing lipid oxidation during training bouts. However, this ignores the dynamic nature of the human body, which continually adjusts its use of substrate for fuel. Energy substrates are continually adapting, Heria. You need to evaluate fat burning over the course of days, not an hour-to-hour basis, to gain a meaningful perspective on its impact on body composition. And actually eating, and specifically carbohydrates, can increase this EPOC, can increase the calorie burn post-workout. He has his heavy lifting days where he eats specifically for that.
A heavy lifting day or something that takes a big overload on my body that I can only do 4 to 5 reps of, I'm going to be eating a lot of carbs that day. So that's going to be like my main carb day, because I need all those carbs to be able to lift and give me all that energy to push as hard as I can.
Perfect. Absolutely, I agree with him. Carbohydrates are used mostly as a fuel during a heavy lifting. That word mostly is important and I'll explain later. But then on his fat burning day, his so-called fat burning day,
Another day I would be doing high intensity fat burning workouts, trying to burn as much fat as possible. Well, those days I wouldn't really be eating any carbs at all because I'm trying to burn as much fat as possible. So I want to use my fat storage cells, the fat that's already in my body, to use as fuel so I can burn that off.
he doesn't eat carbohydrates, low carbs, no carbs, but it's the same type of exercise. It's high intensity, it's HIIT. His heavy lifting, which requires carbs for energy, he intakes carbs, but then for his fat loss day, which is also high intensity, he doesn't intake carbs. So clearly there's a disconnect there. And the disconnect is that he doesn't understand energy substrates. Energy substrates are not linear. For example, higher intensity exercises uses a greater proportion of carbohydrates, your glucose, your glycogen, etc., for exercise, but it does use other energy substrates. Lower intensity exercise uses more fat for fuel, but we don't know exactly how much because it's unique to each person. And also, in addition, throughout a day, your energy substrates will change. They're movable. The body is not linear. It's not a straight A to B mechanism when you're thinking about energy substrates. For example, there's research to suggest that if you're using more of one substrate in your workout, you will use less of that substrate post-workout and more of the other substrate. So if you're using more carbs during a workout for a higher intensity session, you'll use more fat post-workout. And so there's a kind of balancing of the energy substrates. But the reason that on his so-called fat loss days he goes low carb is because he has this concept that you can specifically target the fat in your body by either being fasted or specifically low carb. And again, it's problematic because he's viewing it through an acute lens, a short-term lens.
But let's say you are in a situation where you do need to fast and you're not under some false belief about improved fat oxidation that's going to help you lose extra body fat, or improve performance, or some other thing that is not actually true when you compare fasted and non-fasted training.
So instead of going for that big breakfast of energy in the morning, cereal and milk, pancakes, orange juice, and all that good stuff, we're gonna skip that and use our fat storage cells as energy to start burning off some fat and start putting your body from the beginning into fat burning mode.
Stop it!
And when we look at these concepts such as fasted training through a short-term acute lens, it does make sense. But then when we look at longer-term research, more chronic research, we actually see that it's not significant and that the body is adaptable and it's not that straightforward. And of course, you can train fasted, but only because it's convenient or a personal preference. There is no scientific or unique benefit to training on an empty stomach for fat loss. There just isn't. That isn't real, and I'm sorry if that triggers you. It just isn't, and that's the truth. Again, this is someone who does fitness for a living, and simply waking up and then doing a HIIT warm-up in addition to your regular training just isn't possible time-wise for many people. Now, of course, he works throughout the day, but his job is fitness. He absolutely has more time to train than you do, and instantly, you have to consider how applicable he is to you. And yes, he looks great. I'm not going to take that away from him. But you have to understand that that is his job. And Dr. Schoenfeld says that during moderate to high intensity levels, the body continues to break down significantly more fat when fasted than compared to after you've eaten. Unfortunately, the rate of breakdown exceeds your body's ability to use the extra fatty acids as fuel. In other words, you have a lot of extra fatty acids floating around in the blood that can't be used by the working muscles. And therefore, HIIT, high intensity cardio, which is great, does not mean that you'll necessarily burn the fat in your body. The breaking down of fat, lipolysis, and the oxidation of fat, beta oxidation, do not necessarily go hand in hand. One doesn't necessarily cause the other. Now, these are both needed for fat burning, turning those fatty acids into the body's energy source, ATP. However, high intensity work sometimes in certain scenarios can mean that those fatty acids cannot be oxidized. And this is why using lower intensity exercise can be useful to help to oxidize those fatty acids. And that's just something for you to consider. Because again, he was very condescending in his HIIT message to Alan, and I'm sure he has no idea about the difference between lipolysis and beta oxidation.
If you guys want to hear more on nutrition, I can make a whole video about that.
Please don't, Chris. But the way he presents this information as though it's solid fact is not correct, because it does not consider the nuances and the multifactorial nature of fat burning. Fat burning is not so linear. And therefore, if you are training to burn fat, actually eating before your HIIT cardio can be useful, as it has this thermic effect to burn extra calories. Plus, it can help you to perform better in your training. When you look at things through a chronic lens, through a long-term viewpoint, it changes what we see and what we know and what we understand.
I'm constantly on a caloric deficit myself, and I'm still slowly gaining and building lean muscle.
But Chris, you're not in a constant caloric deficit. I'm going to leave this to the viewers. 10 points to the people who can tell me what would happen to Chris Heria if he was in a constant caloric deficit, indefinitely.
If your natural caloric intake is 2,000 and you're trying to lose weight, well then having a deficit, being under that 2,000 line, is going to help you.
That's calorie surplus.
And if you're trying to gain weight, then you should be having a caloric surplus. You should be having more than your recommended caloric intake.
That's calorie deficit. So I will do this in visual form for you. Calorie intake, calorie output, surplus, calorie intake, calorie output, deficit. And it's not just a slip of the tongue. He says this in multiple videos.
So when it comes to nutrition, it's going to help if you're on a caloric surplus. So if your normal caloric intake is 2,500 calories per day, then being right at that line or a little bit above that is going to give you a caloric surplus. And that is how you make gains. If you are on a caloric deficit, meaning under your normal caloric intake, under 2,500 calories.
He can't explain what a caloric deficit or surplus is. He uses the word intake in many, many videos, and trust me, I've had to sit through them, when he actually means the word output. And so fat loss is a cumulative process which happens on a per need basis. It's a regulated process, meaning that the body burns fat, breaks down fatty acids and burns up fats when it needs to for energy on a per need basis. And it's also related to thermoregulation, the body temperature. It's not simply something you can hack through a legal fat loss supplement, through a bulletproof coffee drink, through a HIIT session on an empty stomach. Of course, that will contribute to your fat loss, because it will contribute to the scientific parameters around fat loss. Your HIIT session is burning calories. You're creating EPOC to burn more calories. You're with good nutrition for fat loss, you're going to be in a caloric deficit over a cumulative amount of time, a week, a month. You're going to burn fat, and with adequate protein intake, you're going to preserve your muscle mass. That is the truth, not some bro science hack of HIIT on an empty stomach, or fasted training, or burning off the calories on the day before, or burning off calories so you can start on an empty tank. This is Shredded Sports Science. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for honest, transparent, and truthful content at all times. I'll see you soon.